Another plane crash. This is Donald Trump's fault. Trump came into office. He's gutting these federal agencies. He is putting on all these DEI hires. The people he's put in his cabinet are not the most qualified, not by a mile. Put the scandals aside, compared to their predecessors in the previous Trump administration and on, definitely not qualified. And now we have a major crash in DC, and then days later, another crash in Philly. This can't be a coincidence. Clearly, this is all Donald Trump's fault. And this is exactly the message you're going to get from some left-wing media channels because, unfortunately, they're greedy. The facts are generally on their side. There's enough bad stuff to talk about Trump, the corruption of his administration, the Republican Party, right-wing media. There's lots of material. They've got so much stuff to talk about, but it's never enough for these people. These capitalists, these left-wing media capitalists, greedy just like corporate media, greedy just like right-wing media. It's all about the views and the clicks, right? Let me ground you in reality as a nonpartisan, right? I go after the left aggressively. I go after the right aggressively. I go after the Republican Party, Democratic Party, mainstream media, independent media. I am a friend of nobody. I have no allies. I'm here for the people. I don't make any money doing this. I'm not here to make people feel good. I'm here to tell you the truth. A lot of people can't handle the truth. That's why this channel is always going to be small, and I'm good with it. So let's talk about the reality. As an Air Force veteran, let me tell you the reality of what's going on. Flying is one of the safest ways to travel. We have tons of aircraft that fly all the time, millions of flights, no issues. However, the reality that you are not aware of, that the media is going to take advantage of, is crashes do happen all the time, right? You got millions of flights, right? Some of them are going to crash. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of major crashes, but you do have a lot of crashes that happen all the time that don't get reported because random plane crash is not good for business in terms of profit. Our media in this country, our for-profit media, they are in the business of entertainment. They make their money from views. They want to put something out there that's going to draw eyeballs so you can see the ads, right? And then the advertisers pay the money. That's how they make their money. It's all about bringing in the views, right? So some random plane crashing, no disrespect to whoever might have died on a flight, but some random plane that crashes somewhere, it's just not, unless it's something spectacular about the crash, it's just not going to draw eyeballs, right? However, a major crash does. So we had an airline, the American Airlines plane that crashed, it's a military helicopter. That's a big story. Everyone's talking about it. So like clockwork, and this is something that they've been doing for decades, I'm going to clue you in on a little strategy that for-profit media uses to manipulate you to maximize their profits. Whenever there's a major crash, that's the time to hyper-focus on any crashes. So let me give you the perspective. Previous to the crash in DC, right, there could have been 5 crashes in the last 3 months, and you didn't hear about any of them, right? Not spectacular enough for you to hear about. Unless it's a plane that crashed near you and the local news picks it up. For local news, that's definitely a good story. But national news, some random plane that crashed, some city somewhere, it's got to be a lot of bodies. I'm sorry to say, I'm not trying to be callous here. I'm just giving you the raw truth, right? They want to see a lot of people perish in a flight. A big airplane, hundreds of people dead. That's the story. That's people going, oh, goodness. That's what draws in the views, and that's where the money comes from, right? However, now that this crash has happened, now plane crashes are a hot story because it's basically the media is taking advantage of the psychology of their audience, right? The way we operate. We're the people that see faces in clouds, right? So if you see a major crash happening on the news, right? Now, if they report on any other random crash, a lot of people are going to have a reaction of like, oh goodness, planes are falling out of the sky. Especially now with what's happening with Trump is doing some very bad stuff, and it can definitely lead to some accidents. People can definitely get hurt from the recklessness of what Trump is doing, but that's a separate point. The fact that Trump is doing craziness with the FAA and laying off people and hiring all these people that are DEI, basically, people that aren't qualified, that's dangerous, right? So we should be concerned about that. But that makes another crash story even more spicy, right? Even without that, let's say Biden was still president right now. The plane crash in Philly is still a juicy story in terms of bringing in the views and therefore the money and therefore the revenue. And that's what for-profit media is all about, whether it's left-wing independent, right-wing independent, or corporate media, whether it's liberal or conservative. It's all about the views, right? So that story would normally be taken advantage of. So again, let me give you the full perspective. If the crash didn't happen in DC, this crash in Philly probably wouldn't be a national story. But now because of that story in DC, now it's probably going to be all over the country. CNN is going to be, a plane crash. But mind you, again, there's many crashes that happen all the time that you never hear about unless it crashes near you and you hear it on local news. This is a trick that they do, right? They're taking advantage of the fact that people are on edge, right? People are nervous about flying right now. It's a big topic right now. So if you see in your feed another plane crash, a lot of people go, oh my goodness, no, no, no. So with that being said, I can guarantee you left-wing media is going to try to make this look like it's somehow Trump's fault. Again, Trump is definitely doing stuff that could lead to these types of things for sure. It is definitely a big threat. What he's, I don't want to, see, this is the thing. I'm telling you guys the raw truth. Somebody like me, you would normally think would be like a centrist guy, right? So what would happen is somehow just love to criticize the left. And then I'm kind of always agreeing with the right, and I don't like to critique the right that much. That's not what's going on here, right? So I agree with a lot of the risk that Trump represents. I personally, as an Air Force veteran, feel nervous about flying under Trump's administration with the recklessness that he's doing. That being said, unless you can create a nexus between this crash or the DC crash and an action that Trump took, the only relevance that Trump has is how he responds to it. So like the DC crash saying it's DEI, that's something that should be called out, right? And also you could mention to people that I don't see a link between this and what Trump is doing, but this kind of thing can happen because of something Trump is doing. But that's the honest integrity way to do things. Some of these guys are so greedy that they're going to pretend, they're going to imply that somehow something Trump did led to this crash. And then what's going to happen? You have, even more dishonest people like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro that are going to see this and they're going to jump up and say, left-wing media is lying to you. They're trying to blame Trump for everything and it's lies and here's why. And they're going to be able to make a solid case because if you guys are saying this is Trump's fault, and you're not identifying like Trump did this, like for example, the DC crash, they talked about they were understaffed. Okay, so was it before Trump? Was there enough people there? And now after Trump, there's less people, right? If they were understaffed before Trump, then you can't blame Trump for them being understaffed. A possible nexus that I would say that you do have between that DC crash and Trump is the hiring freeze. So, but that you can't stop there. You got to go further. So Trump put a hiring freeze. Can you make a direct link between a hiring freeze and the fact that they didn't have someone in this place? So for example, were they even trying to hire someone for that air traffic control? Was that on the agenda? And then they had to shut it down? So was there an ad out there, we need another air traffic controller, and then Trump said hiring freeze and they pulled it down? Or were they just kind of like, we're good, we downsize a little bit, we'll be all right? See, you've got to make a correlation between Trump's actions and the crash. But bottom line is, beware that left-wing media is going to pretend like all of a sudden, because Trump is in office, planes are falling out of the sky. Unfortunately, that is a reality. That is a realistic possibility that could happen. The kind of recklessness that Trump is doing can lead to planes falling out of the sky. But currently, I don't see that happening, right? I don't see a direct connection to what Trump is doing and what has happened. The risk of it, he has introduced a risk of these things happening. But I can't say anything that's happened is his fault. With that being said, this is the Baby Channel. The Baby in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.